Today I'm going to show you how you can build a crate this size for right around $50. So stick around. Welcome back to the shop. We have our medium dapple gray on bow rockers all finished up and it's ready to be crated up and ship home. All we need to do now is build that crate. And that is one of the other big questions I get asked an awful lot is when I complete a horse this size, how do I ship it? And so it's just, again, taken me quite a few years to come up with, but I have a really slick crate that I build, and I'm going to share it with you, how I build a crate and get these all crated up to ship out. So let's go over to the bench. I've got a few things already cut, and I'm going to show you how I build a crate and crate these horses up. So over here at the bench, I have the material that I use to build my crates. And I just run down to the local hardware store, again, which happens to be Home Depot because it's about 10 minutes away from the shop here. I pick up a bundle of 1x furring strips or 1.5-inch furring strips and 2.5-inch furring strips. And then I pick up 3 or 4 2x2s. Again, it's probably cheaper to do 2x4s. Again, I factor in my time and it's just easier to just pick up 2x2s. So I get 3 or 4 of those. So I've gone ahead here and I've gone ahead and made my bottom the base of my crate. And so I always make the base of it a little bit heavier because it's going to be taking quite a bit of a beating. You know, whenever I build these crates, and again, I've been doing this for a number of years and I've built them different ways, but I think this is about the best way to build a crate, and they're really slick and they're real quick to build. But when I build them, I always think of, and this will probably date me, kind of, you know, my age, but back in the day, probably back in the late 70s, there was a commercial for Samsonite luggage with a gorilla throwing the luggage around to show how tough they are.
We at American Tourister know that when your suitcase is out of your hands, it's out of your hands. That's why American Tourister suitcases are reinforced with strong stainless steel frames and solid locks that won't spring open on contact. Sure, you may pay a little more in the beginning, but it'll sure pay in the end. American Tourister. It's not just how good it looks, it's how long it looks good.
Every time I build a crate, I always think of that commercial with the gorilla throwing the luggage, because this is kind of what I envision my crate and my horse going from here to, you know, across the country. This is what it's going to encounter. So I always try to build these things and overbuild them. And again, I think this crate is real easy to build. It's really slick, and hopefully this will help you out. So I've gone ahead, and for this particular horse, we need a crate that is 6 foot long. It's going to be around 43 inches high, and it is about 22 inches, 21 inches wide. And so I've gone ahead and I've built the bottom part of the frame. And the way I did that, again, 6 foot on the outside, I cut some center supports in here and just 2.5-inch screws to hold this all together. That's it. So our base is done. So going on to our sides, again, I've already kind of pre-cut a few things because I was kind of getting into a hurry and I forgot to hit the record button. So I've kind of gone ahead and I've got some of this cut. But again, this isn't too hard to figure out. 6 foot on the 1.5 inch, so I made 2 of these at 6 foot. And then our overall, the horse, we need 39 inches. The overall, it's going to be somewhere around 41, 42 with the when we factor in the 1.5 inch on the base. So our horse, 39 inches, 40 inches, I think is what I figured. So that is what we're actually going to make the walls, the sides of our crate. So again, I've gone ahead and I've got these all cut. And when I'm cutting these, I've got stops set up on my chop saw. And so I can go ahead and build both sides at the same time. So when I do one, build the other one and set those pieces aside so they're already done. This isn't going to take us too long to build this crate. So let's get started. Also, I wanted to say too, well, we'll get into that here. I have these, I had some Baltic birch plywood here at the shop, and I had a lot of scraps, so I cut my scraps up, and these are around 2 1/4 by 3.5 inches long. So they're just little wood plates that we're going to use to join the tops and the bottoms and everything. So we'll join this all together using that, and we're just going to use staples. So again, this is going to be pretty quick and pretty easy, and I think you'll catch on real quick. Just put a little bit of glue on each one of these. We'll call them mending plates or little plates, wood plates. And I'm using, I believe, 3/4 inch staples. These might be 1/2 inch, somewhere around there. They're not 3/4 inch, so they're probably 1/2 inch staples, just enough. Because this Baltic birch, these plates are only 1/8 of an inch thick. there's one. Now I'm going to come back in and I'm going to cut in some corner brackets in here too, but we're going to go ahead and we'll get all of our sides made, and then we can use all of our scrap that's left over, and then we can start making our little corner brackets and go around and nail those in. Now that our frames are all built, we're ready to move on and put our outer layer on the frames. And years ago, again, when I was starting to do this and trying to figure out how to ship a horse and do it cost effectively, I used to use Masonite. I'd build the frame, and I had a different way of building the frame and everything. So it took me probably a day, 2 days to get a crate and get it all crated up. And so this has really streamlined things down. But I used to use Masonite. I'd go into into Home Depot, grab a sheet of Masonite and build my crate out of that. And of course, the cost and especially the weight, when you get one of these crates built, it just was talk about overkill. And so I had to come up with something else. Of course, I knew cardboard was the ticket. I just couldn't really find at the time sheets of cardboard that was inexpensive and to get them in here. So recently though, I found a website called Quill, Quill.com. They handle office supplies and they do carry sheets of corrugated cardboard. And so this is not a real thin, or I'm sorry, a real heavy cardboard. This cardboard's more for when you palletize something and you do multiple layers, so this would go in between that. And for what I'm doing in these crates, it works perfect for me. And once you glue it to the frame and staple the cardboard down, it makes it a really rigid box, so it works out really well. I just looked here this morning. This is around June, the beginning of June 2022, and the price of 48 by 60 inch cardboard sheets, and you get a bundle of 5, is right around $35, and it's free shipping, so it comes out to about $7 a sheet. Now, I had taken advantage of a deal they had a couple of years ago, and they had some 48 by 96 4 by 8 sheets, and again, bundle of 5. I think I paid somewhere around $50 for those, so I ordered in about 4 or 5 bundles at a time so that I had it here on stock, or in stock. But the 48 by 60, again, I can use that just as well. A little bit more cutting, but hey, for $35 free shipping, you can't beat it. So let's go ahead. We'll go get set up here. We'll get one of our frames. Let's go ahead and get our cardboard cut, and I'll show you how I put this all together. Now another little tip that I do is I'll save some of my cardboard, so things that I get in, different toolboxes, benches, things that I order that come in with some nice heavy cardboard, I'll cut a bunch of that out and just kind of put it aside so that I can use that for the base of my crate, so I can use a little heavier cardboard. Sometimes if I don't do that, or if I don't have that, I'll just double up my cardboard, but I like to put a pretty good strong base down for my horses. So I've got this cardboard here that I've kept for about a year, and it's going to work out pretty good. It's coming up a little bit short, so I'm just going to cut it back here to my next cross member here, and then we'll just add another piece on. And if you've noticed, this is the first tube that I've used, so I just about built this entire crate using one tube of liquid nail. It's pretty good. And that pretty much does it as far as building the crate and getting all the pieces put together. Now all we have to do is just assemble it. And we'll go ahead and we'll start with our long side. Now, again, the reason I use the material that I use as far as the 2.5-inch furring strips and the 1.5-inch furring strips is because we built this on a 2x2 frame down here. So we've got a lot of material that we can drive 2.5-inch screws down in. So when we used the bottom part, we only used 1.5 inches. It gives us plenty of room that we can countersink our holes in the bottom and just run screws down, and then that's going to grab and bite onto that 2x2s down here at the bottom. It's going to make it just awful strong. This is where sometimes it helps to have two people, which normally I don't have, but I manage. Once you get a couple of screws started, then it pretty much just stays in place. And you'll see that the crate with these furring strips, because they're cheap wood, they're going to bow on you a little bit. So I just bump it out and just work my way down until I lose that bow in the wood. As far as the sides go, I just kind of put a series of screws. I use 1 5/8 countersink each screw and just lock this into place. The nice thing about the way this crate is built is once it gets to where it's going, the customer can take this apart pretty easily. It doesn't take a lot to get this crate back apart. With our horse temporarily put in place inside the crate, I can go ahead and I can start making the cushion supports that'll hold that horse in place. And again, this is one of my little tricks that I've picked up over the years, and I'm going to share it with you, is how do I secure that horse in there so that it can take a journey, you know, clear across the states. And I use pool noodles. So at the end of the season, you can usually pick these up pretty cheap. I get the larger ones, and I usually pick these up for $1, maybe $1.50, somewhere around there. At the end of the season, they're trying to get rid of them, so I just try to buy up a bunch of them so that I have them in stock and ready to go. So all I do to secure this horse is I make up some 1x1 sticks or supports that we can run, or rods that we can run through here, and I just use my scrap wood, and I cut them at 19 inches because that's what our width is on the inside of that crate. So we'll just cut up about 4 pieces out of this, and we'll go over and we'll get them put in place. There we go, all set to go. Now that we have an idea of where our horse is going to sit inside the crate, we can go ahead and put our other side on and start getting this all fastened in. I like to put the horse, when I send a bow rocker out of here, I like to put the horse with the nose down a little bit, because that protects the ears and the neck, because that's the highest spot. So I always like to run that down a little bit, and when I put in my foam supports, I kind of lift up as much as I can on that the whole rocker and the whole thing, and that takes a lot of weight off of the horse, you know, so when it's being transported and being, you know, moved around, at least a lot of the weight is being put onto these. If you've noticed, I had to go back in and add a few more of these 2.5-inch runners in here. I have all of my measurements for all of my crates all marked down except for the bow rocker. Usually I get in such a rush that I just build the crate and get it out and forget to write everything down. So I went ahead and I'm writing everything down this time so that I can, you know, next time I have to build a crate, then it's a lot easier. So I went ahead and I added these in, and this is just so, again, so this gives an area for my foam hangers to hang on, and makes it really, really secure. So let's go ahead and we'll put down our blankets. The blankets I found blankets at Harbor Freight. Nice moving pads, they're thin, they're cheap, and this is what I use to pack the horse in. I really don't get crazy. I used to bubble wrap, I used to do all of that, but the shipping, knock on wood, I haven't had really any damage on horses in years. So the shipping companies usually do really, really well. These horses ship out of here by freight, and the freight lines, those guys seem to handle things really, really well. So I don't feel the need, and the way these are packed inside the crate, I really don't see the need in going overboard in giving it bubble wrap and everything like that. A nice blanket over top of that with these foam supports and locked into place seems to do just fine. So we'll go ahead and get this blanket wrapped, get it put in place for the last time, and then we'll put the lid on it. Well, our horse is all crated up and it's ready to go home. I sure hope you've enjoyed watching this episode of how I build a crate. The nice thing about building a crate like this and the way I do it, if you had to ship car parts or some sort of machine part or anything, this could be easily adapted to any size. But making these little plates here, these little mending plates that you can just staple on, makes this whole process go really, really fast. This entire crate, when I'm really moving on it and I'm not stopping to record and do all of this extra stuff, you know, I can build it in a couple of hours and, you know, start crating up my horse and get it ready to ship. So it's a really, really fast and simple way, but yet very, very strong once it's all assembled. It's just I think it's just the way to go, and it's a fantastic crate. So I hope you've been able to pick up a few things from this. And again, if you have to crate something, think about, you know, what I did here, and hopefully this helps you out. Thanks a lot for watching. And again, if you haven't already subscribed, think about subscribing. Give this a thumbs up because that really helps me out in the algorithm. I'm sure you've heard that a lot, but it really does. You can also check me out on Instagram at Greenfield Woodworks, and you can check me out on Facebook, Greenfield Woodworks, and my website, of course, greenfieldwoodworks.com. Well, all I have to do now is wait for the truck to get here, put this on the truck, and it's on its way. Thanks a lot for watching. We'll see you here in the shop next week.